The transgression. The Arcturus orbital station rotated in silent majesty against the star-speckled void, its gleaming habitation rings catching the light of Earth's distant sun. Inside Research Module 7, Serin Nakamura hummed softly to herself as her fingers danced across the holographic interface. At 32, she was the youngest lead engineer ever appointed to the station's prestigious gravity manipulation division. "Serin, are you still adjusting those field calibrations?" Dr. Emerson's voice came through the comm. "The council representatives will be arriving in 2 hours." "Almost done," Serin replied, her eyes never leaving the complex equations flowing through the air before her. "The new gravity compression algorithm is finally stabilizing. This could revolutionize our deep space capabilities, Marcus." What neither of them knew was that their communication was being monitored. 6 levels above, docked at a seldom-used service port, a sleek vessel of alien design sat in perfect stealth mode. Inside, Krell of the Viridian Collective studied the transmission with his 4 amber eyes narrowed in calculation. "Interesting," he murmured to himself, mandibles clicking softly. "So the humans have finally stumbled upon gravitational compression." He adjusted his armor, an expensive blend of bioreactive materials that shifted to match his green-black exoskeleton, and checked the settings on his phase disruptor. The Viridian Collective had been watching Earth's technological advancement with growing concern. Humans were developing too quickly, solving problems that had taken other species centuries to unravel. Krell wasn't officially here on collective business. This was a private contract from several high-ranking Viridians who preferred to keep their involvement deniable. His orders were simple: assess the human gravity technology, and if it posed a genuine threat to Viridian technological supremacy, eliminate the key researchers and destroy their work. Serin stepped back from her console with a satisfied sigh. The field test was successful. The miniaturized gravity well had compressed to a stable point smaller than a hydrogen atom while maintaining its mass influence. The implications were staggering. Revolutionary propulsion systems, weapons that could manipulate the very fabric of space-time, shields that could bend energy around them. "I'm heading to Lab 3 to check the physical prototype," she informed Marcus. "The simulation looks perfect, but I want to verify the containment field integrity before the demonstration." She collected her tablet and made her way through the station's curved corridors. The orbital facility housed over 2,000 researchers and support staff, representing Earth's unified scientific community. After centuries of division, humanity had finally recognized that cooperation, not competition, was the path forward. The United Earth Science Directorate had been formed just 30 years ago, bringing together the planet's greatest minds. Lab 3 was isolated from the main research areas for safety reasons. As Serin approached, she noticed something unusual. The biometric security panel was dark. She frowned and tapped her comm unit. "Security, this is lead engineer Nakamura. The access system for Lab 3 appears to be offline." There was no response, only static. A chill ran down her spine as the emergency lights suddenly activated, bathing the corridor in pulsing red. The station's AI remained silent. No automated warnings, no evacuation instructions. The door to Lab 3 slid open. Serin froze as a tall, insectoid figure emerged, holding her gravity compression prototype. Krell's amber eyes fixed on her, his mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile. "Engineer Nakamura," he said, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into flawless English. "Your work is quite impressive. Primitive by Viridian standards, of course, but impressive nonetheless for a species so young." Serin's mind raced. The station had alien visitors regularly, diplomatic envoys, scientific collaborators, but none like this. The armor, the weapon at his side, the way he moved. This was no diplomat. "That prototype is unstable," she said carefully. "The containment field requires specific handling protocols." "I'm well aware," Krell replied. "Your encryption was adequate for human technology, but the collective mastered quantum computing when your ancestors were still perfecting the steam engine." He studied the device in his hand. "I've seen enough to confirm my employer's fears. Your gravity manipulation technology has advanced beyond acceptable parameters. The timeline for human containment must be accelerated." Containment. Saren's voice remained steady despite her racing heart. "We've done nothing to threaten your people. This technology is for exploration, for building." Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly. Laughter, she realized. "Every tool is a weapon if held correctly, engineer. Your species has a remarkable talent for turning scientific discoveries into means of destruction. The collective has studied your history. You fight constantly, evolve rapidly, and innovate relentlessly. You are unpredictable. The galaxy prefers predictability." Saren edged toward a nearby emergency station. If she could just reach the alarm. "Stay where you are," Krell said softly, raising his phase disruptor. "I've already disabled your security systems and communication array. No one is coming. They'll know it was you." Saren replied, "Whatever you're planning, Earth won't stand for an attack on this station. Earth will protest through diplomatic channels. The collective will express regret over the actions of a rogue operative. Sanctions will be discussed. Reparations might be paid." His four eyes blinked in sequence, "But the technology will be delayed by crucial decades while your people rebuild. That is all that matters." Saren's mind calculated odds, possibilities, escape routes. The prototype in Krell's hands was indeed unstable, but not in the way she had implied. She had solved the instability problem 3 days ago. What remained untested was the gravity field's interaction with certain energy weapons, like the phase disruptor Krell was pointing at her. "The collective doesn't understand humans," she said, slowly reaching behind her back to adjust something on her tablet. "We don't just give up when we lose someone. We don't forget." "Admirable sentiments," Krell replied, "but ultimately irrelevant. Your species is too fractured, too individualistic to mount a meaningful response. By the time your bureaucrats finish arguing about how to react, the moment will have passed." Saren's finger found the activation sequence on her tablet. The prototype in Krell's hand emitted a soft hum. "What did you do?" he demanded, amber eyes fixed on the device. "Prove your hypothesis correct," Saren said quietly. "Humans are very good at turning scientific discoveries into weapons." The prototype's containment field began to interact with the energy signature of the phase disruptor. It was a theory Saren had developed but never tested, that an active gravity compression field could be destabilized by certain energy frequencies, creating a cascading reaction. Krell realized too late what was happening. He tried to throw the device away, but the gravitational field had already linked with his weapon, creating a localized distortion that pulled at both devices. His mandibles spread wide in alarm. "You'll die too," he hissed. Saren Nakamura stood straight, her dark eyes calm. "Sometimes that's the price of progress." The security cameras captured everything. Saren's final moments of defiance, the gravity field's collapse, the blinding flash as space itself seemed to fold around the two figures. When the light faded, a perfect sphere of emptiness occupied the space where they had stood. A bubble of altered physics that would take Earth's scientists years to fully understand. But they would understand it, eventually. Because Saren had done one last thing before activating the prototype. She had transmitted every byte of her research, along with the full recording of her encounter with Krell, directly to Earth through her personal quantum-entangled channel, a security measure she had installed after previous attempts at corporate espionage. The message reached Earth seconds before the gravitational anomaly destroyed that section of the station. On Earth, the response was not what Krell had predicted. There were no lengthy debates, no bureaucratic delays. Within hours, the recording of Saren's sacrifice was playing on every screen across the planet. Within days, the fractured nations and corporate entities that Krell had counted on to delay a response had united with singular purpose. In Geneva, the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation stood in solemn silence as Admiral Elena Santos, commander of Earth's modest defensive fleet, addressed the assembly. "The Viridian Collective believes they understand us," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "They think we are predictable, that we will follow established diplomatic protocols while they continue to undermine our progress." Engineer Nakamura's data reveals that this was not an isolated incident. The collective has been systematically sabotaging human advancement for decades. She gestured, and the air filled with holographic displays showing evidence extracted from Krell's ship's logs, detailed records of previous operations against human interests, a comprehensive list of Earth technologies deemed threatening, and most damning, a preliminary timeline for what the Viridians called human containment. "They plan to keep us confined to our solar system," Admiral Santos continued, "to limit our growth, control our technology, and eventually reduce us to a client species dependent on their approval, all while maintaining the pretense of diplomatic respect." The council chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. "I propose an immediate vote on Resolution 217, Santos said. "Full military mobilization and the implementation of the Nakamura Protocol." From the American delegation, Senator Reyes stood. "Admiral, with respect, we have barely begun to understand Engineer Nakamura's research. The technological applications are theoretical at best, and our fleet is outnumbered 10-1 by Viridian forces." Admiral Santos nodded. "That is why they believe they can act with impunity. That is why they think one death will delay us by decades." Her eyes swept the chamber. "They do not understand that humans do not need decades. We need motivation." The Chinese representative, General Zhao, leaned forward. "The Nakamura Protocol. Explain." Engineer Nakamura's final transmission included more than research data, Santos replied. It included her complete neural scan, standard procedure for all key personnel working with experimental technology, her brain patterns, memories, thought processes, everything that made her one of our most brilliant minds. A murmur ran through the chamber. "We've already begun using her neural template to complete her work," Santos continued. "But more importantly, we've distributed her understanding of gravitational physics to our entire scientific community through accelerated neural training. What would have taken decades of conventional research and development will now take months, perhaps weeks." The display changed to show Earth's orbital shipyards, where vessels were already being modified with prototype gravity manipulation systems. "The Viridian Collective believes they understand humans," Santos said, her voice hardening. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." All in favor of Resolution 217. Hands rose across the chamber, not in the usual scattered fashion of reluctant agreement, but in unison, a synchronized wave of human determination that would soon reshape the galactic order. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, Earth's response began. The reckoning. The Viridian High Command Facility on Proxima Centauri III buzzed with unusual activity. Strategic Director Vexer stalked through the monitoring center, his exoskeleton clicking against the polished floor as subordinates hurried out of his path. "Explain," he demanded, 4 amber eyes fixed on the holographic display showing multiple anomalies throughout Viridian space. Senior Analyst Threll's antennae flattened submissively. "We're detecting unusual gravitational disturbances at 17 different locations within our territory, Director. They appeared simultaneously, approximately 14 standard minutes ago. And you're telling me these aren't natural phenomena?" Vexer's mandibles clicked in irritation. "The pattern is too precise, the timing too coordinated," Threll replied. "Our astrophysics division confirms they are artificial constructs." "But," her voice faltered. "But what?" Vexer demanded. "The technology doesn't match any known species in our database. The energy signatures are entirely novel." Vexer's outer eyes narrowed. "Show me the locations." The holographic display expanded, revealing a 3-dimensional map of Viridian-controlled space. The 17 anomalies formed a clear pattern. They surrounded key military installations, major fleet positions, and critical supply routes. "Impossible," Vexer whispered. No species possesses this capability. To create synchronized gravitational disturbances across 20 light-years of space would require. Director, another analyst interrupted, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast simultaneously from all 17 anomalies. Put it through, Vexor ordered, his exoskeleton stiffening with uncharacteristic apprehension. The holographic display shifted to show a human female in a crisp military uniform. Admiral Santos gazed out at them, her expression calm but resolute. This message is for the Viridian Collective High Command, she began. 3 standard days ago, a Viridian operative named Krell assassinated engineer Seren Nakamura at the Arcturus orbital station. His mission, authorized by members of your inner circle, was to eliminate humanity's advances in gravitational physics and ensure our continued technological containment. Santos paused, allowing her words to register. For centuries, we have extended diplomatic courtesy to the collective. We have followed your regulations, accepted your limitations, and trusted in the process of peaceful cooperation. That ends today. The display split to show the 17 gravitational anomalies, now revealed to be Earth vessels utilizing previously unknown propulsion technology. The devices you're detecting are Earth's first-generation gravity manipulation fields. They are a direct application of engineer Nakamura's research your operative tried to destroy. Each field is generated by one of our Aurora-class destroyers, which entered your territory through folded space trajectories that your sensors are incapable of detecting. The implications weren't lost on Vexor. If humans could deploy military vessels undetected anywhere in Viridian space, we are not declaring war, Santos continued. We are establishing new parameters for our relationship. The following non-negotiable terms will take effect immediately. The terms appeared beside her image. All Viridian operations against human interests will cease. The collective will acknowledge humanity's right to unrestricted technological development. Those responsible for authorizing engineer Nakamura's assassination will be surrendered to Earth authorities. The Viridian collective will withdraw all forces from the Sol Proxima corridor. You have 3 hours to communicate your acceptance, Santos concluded. After that, we will demonstrate the full capabilities of the Nakamura Protocol. Admiral Santos, out. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Vexor's mind raced. The humans were bluffing. They had to be. Even with advanced gravity technology, their military was vastly outnumbered. The collective could crush any human aggression with overwhelming force. Tactical assessment, he ordered. Fleet Commander Xerxes stepped forward, his battle-scarred exoskeleton marking him as a veteran of numerous campaigns. The human vessels appear to be modified from their standard destroyer design. If their capabilities are limited to creating gravitational disturbances, they pose no significant threat to our battle groups. And if they're not bluffing? Vexor asked quietly. Xerxes hesitated. Then we face an unknown tactical scenario. The ability to manipulate gravity at this scale suggests possibilities that our strategic doctrines have not accounted for. Vexor made his decision. Dispatch containment fleets to all 17 locations. I want those human vessels captured or destroyed. And find the mercenary Krell. I want to know exactly who authorized his mission. Across Viridian space, massive battle groups began moving toward the human vessels. Each group comprised dozens of warships, a display of overwhelming force meant to crush any resistance. Aboard the UES Defiant, Admiral Santos watched the Viridian response with grim satisfaction. They're deploying their fleets exactly as predicted, her tactical officer reported. Santos nodded. Activate Phase 2 of the Nakamura Protocol. Throughout human space, a transformation was occurring. Engineer Nakamura's neural template, her understanding of gravitational physics, her intuitive grasp of space-time manipulation, had been distributed to thousands of scientists and engineers through neural interface technology. What would have taken generations of research was being accomplished in days. As Viridian battle groups surrounded the human destroyers, something unprecedented happened. The gravitational fields generated by the Earth vessels began to change, expanding and contracting in precise patterns that created ripples through space-time itself. On the Viridian command ships, alarms blared as sensors detected the change. "What are they doing?" Vexor demanded, watching as the human vessel's gravitational fields pulsed in synchronized harmony. The answer came moments later. Space itself seemed to fold around the Viridian fleets, creating localized distortions that disrupted their formation. Ships that had been perfectly aligned suddenly found themselves kilometers apart, their navigational systems unable to compensate for the shifting spatial geometry. "Director, we can't maintain formation." Fleet Commander Zrixis reported, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The humans are somehow altering the underlying structure of space around our vessels." Before Vexor could respond, a new transmission came through. Admiral Santos appeared again, but this time she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a holographic representation of Seren Nakamura, reconstructed from her neural scan. "The demonstration has begun," Santos stated calmly. "What you're experiencing is a controlled application of gravitational lensing, the ability to selectively compress and expand space-time. This is but one application of Engineer Nakamura's work." The holographic Seren spoke, her voice reconstructed from recordings, but her knowledge drawn directly from her neural template. "Your ship's propulsion systems rely on conventional physics. They cannot function properly when the surrounding space-time metric is in flux. This is only the beginning of what we can do." As if to emphasize her point, 3 Viridian cruisers suddenly found themselves pulled into a contained gravitational sink, their hulls groaning under forces they were never designed to withstand. "We can target specific vessels," Santos explained. "We can isolate entire battle groups in bubbles of altered space. We can, if necessary, create gravitational singularities that would consume your fleets entirely." Vexor's exoskeleton paled to a sickly yellow. "This violates all known laws of physics." "No," the holographic Seren replied. "It violates your understanding of physics. Humans have moved beyond that understanding. You killed me to delay human progress. Instead, you accelerated it." Across Viridian space, similar scenes played out as Earth vessels demonstrated capabilities that transformed the balance of power in an instant. It wasn't merely superior technology. It was a fundamental reconceptualization of what was possible. Within the 3-hour deadline, the Viridian Collective Supreme Council convened an emergency session and transmitted their response. Full acceptance of all terms. 1 week later, in the neutral space of the Ta-Ceti system, representatives from major galactic civilizations gathered to witness the formal agreement between Earth and the Viridian Collective. The treaty acknowledged humanity's unrestricted right to technological development and established new protocols for interspecies relations. As Admiral Santos signed the document, the holographic presence of Seren Nakamura stood beside her, a permanent reminder that humanity would never again allow its potential to be constrained by external forces. On Earth, in what had once been Tokyo, a memorial was unveiled. It depicted Seren Nakamura not as she died, but as she lived, a brilliant mind whose work had transformed humanity's place in the galaxy. The plaque bore a simple inscription that would become Earth's unofficial motto in the decades of expansion and discovery that followed. "For every fallen human, we rise 1,000 strong." The Viridian Collective had made a catastrophic miscalculation. They had believed they understood humans, that humanity was predictable, that they would respond to aggression with diplomatic protests, that the loss of one life could delay their progress by decades. They hadn't understood that humans don't measure progress in decades, but in moments of crisis. They hadn't realized that humans don't merely grieve their fallen. They transform that grief into determination, innovation, and ultimately, evolution. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.